Hey there, and welcome to this course on the Carcassi's Opus 60, number 1. This is a great etude. So let's talk, in this video, we're going to talk about what we're actually doing with this, and we're taking an overview of the whole piece so that we know what is in store. We'll identify the basic challenges that we'll come up with so that we can guide our practice and know that we're always practicing, so that you're always practicing the main issues of the piece, so that as you get all the notes together, as you get all the moves together, the real issues are also rising so that you don't get all the way up there, learn all the notes, and then realize, boom, there's this whole other issue that you haven't even been thinking about. So that is what we're going to be doing in this video. To begin with, let's just take a look. I know this is a great big little bitty notes here. You can hardly see what's going on. In general, what we have is these big, long, descending scales, right? Here's a long scale, here's a scale, scale, scale. The whole thing is scales, right? These are just little, and we can just tell these because it's note by note playing. So this is a scale etude, basically. The only difference is it's not just a scale etude, because if it was just a scale etude, then you might as well just play your scales. It's really an exercise in playing melodically. So it's using scales as melody. And so really what this is an etude about is melodic scale playing, not just playing scales, because this isn't music, right? It's not music, it's a scale. And so you can very easily fall into the trap as you're learning this to play this in the exact same way. It's not pretty that way, and you'll hear a lot of people online playing it that way, and I don't know why they do that, but it's not melodic playing in that way. It's just playing scales in this particular pattern, and that's not what we're going for here. What we're going for is to play this to where it's a beautiful piece of music that happens to be comprised of scales. Does that make sense? So then we'll talk about how to actually do that. It involves dynamics, the way that you move through your scales, dynamics, swells, fades, when to get louder, when to get softer, and the connection of each note. So that playing legato from one note to the next is very connected instead of very broken. So this is what we're actually doing on this. So we have multiple levels that we'll have to work on this piece on which we'll have to work on this piece. So first off, we have to just learn the notes, right? That's an immediate thing. We just need to get the notes, and we can go through the 7-step process to do that, of making small sections, looking at the rhythm, looking at all the musical markings, looking at the hands separately, and then putting them together. You can do that and get the notes fairly quickly, and we won't be spending a lot of time on that in this course, because if you're playing this piece, then I am assuming that you can actually read this music, and so we won't really need to go through too much of that, except for just a couple of spots. What we will be spending time on is how to actually go about practicing this so that you're actually practicing something that makes it into a study, an etude, and that you actually get better from playing the piece, which is great, and it's a beautiful piece. So the scale parts, that's what we're doing, right? But then there are other sections to this as well. If we're just looking through, let's just go through our sections. So if you see these little squared numbers on your score right here, then these are sections. And so let's just look at what each section does. So the first one, boom, da 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 da, da 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 da. Big downscale, big downscale, big 2-bar downscale. So scale, scale, big scale. The second section, scale, scale, big scale, again, with a little turnaround, little loop at the top. And then we have, in section 3, we have up, down on the treble, up, down on the bass. On the next section, we have up, down on the treble, up, down on the bass. So that's so we have 2 sections so far, right? We have little scale, big scale is the first section. And then we have that same thing again, little scale, big scale. And then we have up, down on the treble, up, down on the bass, and then up, down on the treble, up, down on the bass again. So that's the first 4 sections right there. From that point, then we have this up, down in 1 bar, up, down in 1 bar, up, down in 1 bar, up, down in 1 bar. And so then we basically compress this idea. Instead of 2 bars up and 2 bars down, or a full bar up and a full bar down, we're going up and down in one bar right here. And then, and I probably should have broken this section here, but whatever. Then we have this different thing. And this is arpeggio and then a back and forth. And then we do it again, arpeggio and then a back and forth. And then we have this section. And this is where the bass starts moving twice as fast. So instead of every bar, we're moving twice in each bar. So the harmony speeds up. The rate at which chords change speeds up right here. So this is a little section unto itself. And then we have a little scale passage. Big scale, up, down, and then that gets us here. And once we get to right here, then we have a whole different thing go on. And it becomes really a different etude. From this point all the way up until down here, through all of this, we have this PIMA, and then it becomes a moving around chords while connecting, hopefully with the right notes. While connecting, it becomes a chord exercise, arpeggiating chords with a PIMA, and moving this bar chord so that it's smooth. So connecting chords, moving chords around the neck smoothly. That's what this becomes an etude in, this whole section right here. At the end, we just have 2 octaves up, 2 octaves down, and then a little tidy ending. It's kind of a throwaway ending, which it becomes much ado about nothing. That just chord, chord, chord. Very, very typical of the time period and of Carcassi, but not the most thrilling ending you've ever heard in your life, unless we make it so. So that's the basic thing. Just to do a quick review on what we just did. On our sections, we have scales through the first, scales through the second, scales up and down through the third. Is to right there. And then we have scale up, down, scale up, down. So we're still at scales, still at scales. And then right here, towards the end of this section, we get into arpeggios and then scales. So we have arpeggio, scale, arpeggio, scale. Twice as fast harmony, scales, and then we have chords, chords, all the way to right here, and then we end up with scales again. So that's our big sections. Those are our big sections in what we're doing. So in the next video, we will talk about scale technique for the right hand. We'll talk about left hand technique as well, and just basic ideas, things to think about while you're practicing. So we'll just cover the technical bases, and then we'll move on into the piece proper.